Linda had cared for her disabled husband for years. But one day she turned on his forgotten phone and heard a voicemail for her mother-in-law. The words made her blood run cold. That damn phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Linda was trying to chop vegetables for dinner. Marcus liked his carrots cut exactly the same size, said it helped him feel some control over his life, when the thing started vibrating like crazy on the counter. She wiped her hands on the dish towel, the one with the faded rooster print that she'd been meaning to replace for months. Marcus's phone. He'd left it again, probably rolled out of his lap when he transferred to his chair. Happened all the time. 7 missed calls from Dorothy, his mother. Linda's jaw tightened automatically. Dorothy only called when she wanted something or had complaints about how Linda was handling things, usually both. The phone felt heavier than it should have in her hands. Something nagged at her, some instinct she couldn't quite name. Dorothy hated cell phones, always said they were too confusing. So why was she calling Marcus's mobile instead of the house phone? Linda glanced toward the living room, where Marcus sat watching some cooking show, his head tilted at that particular angle that meant his neck was bothering him again. Poor guy. 5 years since the accident, and some days were still harder than others. She almost hit the callback button, but hesitated. Dorothy's voice echoed in her memory from their last conversation, sharp comments about the house being too cluttered, suggestions that Linda wasn't pushing Marcus hard enough in physical therapy. Maybe she should listen to the messages first, get a sense of Dorothy's mood before calling back. The first voicemail was typical Dorothy, demanding and impatient. "Marcus, honey, you need to call me back immediately. This is getting ridiculous." Linda rolled her eyes. Everything was urgent with Dorothy, whether it was a leaky faucet or a missed bridge game. The second message had an edge she'd never heard before. "Marcus, I know you're there. Stop playing games. We need to discuss what happens next." Next? Linda's stomach did something funny. What did that mean? Linda pressed the phone closer to her ear, her pulse picking up speed. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm. Through the window, she could see old Mr. Blank very H. Peterson walking his dog, normal Tuesday afternoon stuff, but nothing felt normal anymore. The third message hit her like a truck. "Fine, don't answer. But remember, if Linda finds out about the walking, about the job interviews, about any of it, this whole thing falls apart. And then what? You'll actually have to live like an invalid for real." The phone slipped from her fingers, hit the linoleum with a plastic crack. Linda stared at it lying there, Dorothy's words echoing in her head. Walking. Job interviews. The room seemed to tilt sideways. She looked through the doorway at Marcus. Same position as always. Slumped in his wheelchair, remote in one hand, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The picture of a man whose life had been stolen by a drunk driver on a rainy Thursday morning 5 years ago. Except, walking, job interviews? Linda's legs felt like jelly as she walked toward the living room. Her heart was doing this weird, fluttering thing, like when she'd had too much coffee. The carpet felt strange under her feet, like she was walking on a boat or something. "Marcus?" Her voice came out all wrong, scratchy and thin. He didn't turn around, never did anymore, said the neck injuries made quick movements too painful. She'd learned to approach him from the side, make sure he could see her coming. "Hey babe," he said without looking away from the TV. Some chef was making pasta, tossing it in a pan with more flair than necessary. "Can you grab me some water? My throat's super dry." The casual tone, the easy request, it was so normal, so perfectly Marcus. But Linda found herself staring at the back of his head, looking for, what? Signs of deception? Clues she'd missed? Walking. The word bounced around in her skull like a pinball. "Sure," Linda managed, though saying even that single word felt like pushing a boulder uphill. Water, coming right up. She moved through the kitchen like a zombie, running the tap, filling a glass. Her hands were shaking, actually shaking, and she had to grip the counter to steady herself. The faucet dripped once, twice, 3 times before she remembered to turn it off completely. 5 years. 5 years of lifting him, bathing him, cutting his food into manageable pieces. 5 years of fighting with insurance companies, learning about adaptive equipment, researching experimental treatments. 5 years of putting her own life on hold because Marcus needed her. Her marketing career, gone. That promotion she'd been up for when the accident happened, given to someone else. Her friends had stopped calling after the first year, tired of canceled plans and rain checks. Her whole world had shrunk down to this house, this routine, this careful dance around Marcus's limitations. Limitations that maybe weren't so limiting after all. Linda brought the water back, watching Marcus's face as he accepted it. Really watching, for the first time in months. He smiled, that crooked grin that had made her fall in love with him in college, and took a long drink. "Thanks, you're the best," he said, and the words that used to make her heart skip now felt like sand in her ears. She studied his hands as he held the glass, steady, strong, no tremor, no difficulty with fine motor control. The doctors had always said his upper body strength was remarkable, considering his injuries. She'd been so proud of how well he'd maintained his muscle tone. Now she wondered if there was a different reason for that strength. "I'm gonna throw some laundry in," she said, testing something, though she wasn't sure what. Eyes still glued to the TV. Linda climbed the stairs, each step feeling like she was walking through mud. At the top, she turned and looked back down. Marcus hadn't moved, wheelchair positioned at exactly the right angle for optimal TV viewing, the same position she'd left him in that morning. Their bedroom looked different somehow, like she was seeing it through new eyes. The hospital bed they'd bought when Marcus first came home, the one he'd transitioned out of after 6 months, saying he felt strong enough to manage their regular bed with some help. The grab bars in the bathroom, the shower chair, all the equipment of their new normal. Linda sat on the edge of their bed, the one where intimacy had become a careful choreography of positioning and accommodation. Where she'd cried herself to sleep more nights than she could count, grieving for the life they'd lost. She pulled out her phone and dialed Dorothy's number. Her mother-in-law answered before the first ring finished. "Linda, why are you calling from your phone? Where's Marcus?" The panic in Dorothy's voice was immediate and unmistakable. Linda closed her eyes, feeling the last piece of her denial crumble away. "He's downstairs, in his chair, where he always is." "Oh." Dorothy's relief was so obvious, it was almost funny. "Good, I was just trying to reach him about his appointment next week." "Dorothy, I heard your voicemail. The one about the walking." Silence. Complete dead silence. Linda could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "I don't know what you mean." "The job interviews, the act, all of it." Then Dorothy's voice, smaller now. "Linda, honey, it's not that simple." Simple. Linda almost laughed. What was simple about a man pretending to be disabled? What was simple about 5 years of lies? "Make it simple for me," Linda said. After the accident, the doctors said he might never walk again. Marcus panicked. The medical bills, the uncertainty, he was terrified. But he got better. Some, yes, but by then. Dorothy's voice trailed off. The insurance settlement was substantial, more than he'd ever make at his old job. And you were so devoted, so caring, it just seemed easier to let things continue as they were. Easier. Linda felt something cold settle in her stomach. Easier for whom? "How long have you known?" Linda asked. "Since the hospital. He called me the night before they discharged him, said he could feel his legs again, but he was scared about the bills, about what would happen if the insurance money stopped coming." "So you helped him lie to me." "I helped him survive. You seemed so dedicated to taking care of him. We thought it would work itself out eventually." Linda's free hand clenched into a fist. Dedicated. Like her love was something to be managed and manipulated rather than cherished. "What about the job interviews?" she asked. Dorothy hesitated. Remote work, computer stuff, things he could do from home without anyone knowing. "While I work, double shifts at the diner to pay for his medical expenses." "Linda, you have to understand." Linda hung up. Her hands were shaking so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. Downstairs, she could hear the TV, some commercial about car insurance. Marcus was probably still sitting there, playing his part, perfecting his performance. Linda walked to their closet and started pulling things out. Her clothes, her shoes, the small jewelry box her grandmother had given her. Her movements felt mechanical, like she was watching herself from outside her body. At the back of the closet, behind Marcus's work clothes, the ones he claimed would never fit him again because of weight loss and muscle atrophy, she found the folder. The one she'd hidden 3 years ago and tried to forget about. Inside was her acceptance letter to the graduate program in social work, the program she'd turned down because Marcus needed her. The letter she'd never been able to throw away, telling herself she'd reapply someday when things got better. Things were about to get a lot better. She stuffed the letter into her purse along with her birth certificate, passport, and the small stash of cash she'd been saving for a surprise weekend getaway, a getaway that would never happen now. "Linda?" Marcus's voice drifted up from downstairs. "You okay up there? You're being really quiet." "I'm fine," she called back, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Just organizing some things." She found her old suitcase in the back of the closet, the one they'd used for their honeymoon. It smelled like dust and old memories. She packed quickly, efficiently, like she was preparing for a business trip instead of abandoning her entire life. As she carried the suitcase downstairs, each thump against the steps seemed to echo through the house. Marcus turned his head slightly, that careful, controlled movement that suggested pain and limitation. "Going somewhere?" he asked, and for the first time in years, Linda heard something different in his voice. Wariness, maybe even fear. "Yes," she said simply. She set the suitcase by the front door and turned to face him. Marcus had maneuvered his wheelchair to face her directly, a complex movement that should have been difficult given his supposed limitations, but which he executed smoothly. "Linda, what's happening? You're freaking me out." Linda looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. She'd been avoiding direct eye contact lately, finding it too painful to see the defeat in his expression. Now she saw something else entirely. His muscle tone was better than it had been before the accident. His posture was straight, alert. His skin had a healthy glow she'd attributed to the vitamins and supplements she'd been giving him. "I know," she said. Marcus's face went white. "Know what?" "About the walking. About the job interviews. About all of it." His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Linda, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You've had 5 years to work on your explanation." "It's not what you think." Linda almost smiled. "It's exactly what I think. You've been lying to me for 5 years, pretending to be disabled while I gave up everything to take care of you." Marcus tried to wheel closer, but Linda stepped back. The movement was instinctive. She'd spent so many years accommodating his space, his needs, his limitations. Now she was claiming her own space. "I do love you," Marcus said desperately. "That was never fake. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how." "When? After another 5 years? After I'd wasted my entire life?" "You didn't waste anything. We built a life together. We built a lie together. I built a life around your lie." Marcus's face crumpled in that way that used to make her heart break, but now she could see the calculation behind it, the practiced vulnerability. "The insurance money," she said, "the disability payments, it's all fraud. We can fix this. I'll confess everything. Pay it all back. We can start over." Linda shook her head. "With what money? The money you've been stealing." "I never meant for it to go this far. At first, I really thought I might never walk again. Then when I started getting better, I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of the legal consequences. Scared of having to go back to my old life. So you decided to steal mine instead." "I gave up everything for you," Linda said, her voice finally cracking. "My career, my friends, my dreams. I work at a diner slinging eggs and hash browns to pay for your medical bills while you sit here collecting disability and planning your next move. I never asked you to give up anything." The words hit her like a physical blow. "You didn't have to ask. I did it because I loved you, because I thought you needed me. I do need you. Maybe not the way you thought, but—" "Stop." Linda held up her hand. "Just stop talking. You don't get to rewrite this story now. You don't get to make this about love when it's been about lies." She picked up her suitcase and opened the front door. Outside, the world looked the same as it had that morning. Same trees, same sidewalk, same neighbors' annoying wind chimes. But everything felt different now. "Where are you going?" Marcus asked, his voice small. "I'm going to live my life. The one I should have been living all along." "Linda, please, don't do this. We can work it out. I'll do anything." She paused in the doorway, looking back at him one last time. He was still in the wheelchair, still maintaining the pretense even now. Even with his lie exposed, he couldn't stop performing. "You want to do something?" she said. "Stand up. Walk to that phone. Call the insurance company and tell them the truth. Call Social Security and confess. Return every penny you've stolen." Marcus's face went pale. "I can't. The legal consequences." "Then you've made your choice." Linda stepped outside and closed the door behind her. She could hear Marcus calling her name through the wood, his voice getting more desperate, but she didn't turn around. She'd spent 5 years turning around, running back, putting his needs first. At the end of the driveway, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd memorized but never called. "Graduate Admissions Office." "Hi, this is Linda Morrison. I was accepted to your social work program a few years ago, but had to decline. I'd like to know about reapplying for next semester." As Linda waited for the taxi she'd called, she could see Marcus through the living room window. He was still in his wheelchair, still playing his part. Old habits, she supposed. The taxi pulled up, a beat-up yellow sedan with a dent in the front bumper. The driver was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, who didn't ask questions when Linda threw her suitcase in the back and said, "Airport, please." As they drove away, Linda looked back at the house one last time. It looked smaller than she remembered, less significant. Just another house on another street, filled with someone else's lies. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Please come back. We can talk about this." Linda deleted it without responding. She had nothing left to say to him, nothing that wouldn't be a waste of breath. The taxi driver caught her eye in the rearview mirror. "Big trip?" "New beginning," Linda said, and meant it. At the airport, Linda bought a ticket to Denver, where the university was, where her new life was waiting. As she sat in the departure lounge, she thought about the woman she'd been that morning. The woman who'd been chopping carrots and planning dinner for a man who'd been lying to her for 5 years. That woman felt like a stranger now. Her phone rang. Marcus again. She let it go to voicemail, then blocked his number. Whatever he had to say, she didn't need to hear it. She'd heard enough lies to last a lifetime. When they called her flight, Linda stood up and walked toward the gate. Each step felt lighter than the last, like she was shedding weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Behind her, she left a wheelchair, a house full of medical equipment, and a man who'd chosen deception over truth. Ahead of her lay graduate school, a new career, a life built on solid ground instead of quicksand. For the first time in 5 years, Linda smiled and meant it.